the best resumes need an introduction to provide a background reason for why you've applied for a job and to entice the reader to want to go on and open your resume. And this is where your cover letter or motivational letter comes in. But the stakes are high. If you don't pay sufficient attention to the accompanying letter with your application, the potential employer may not even go on to read your resume, in which case you'll have inadvertently sabotaged your chances of getting selected for interview. So today I want to share with you 5 common cover letter mistakes that can prevent your resume from being read and how to avoid them. Hi, I'm Vicky, author of the Biomed Badass blog and host of the YouTube channel where we discuss all things career related for STEM professionals working in academia and beyond. What you're going to learn about today are some of the common howlers that people make when crafting their cover letters that can sink their application at the first hurdle. I'm focusing on this topic of cover letters through popular demand. It seems a lot of you out there interested in knowing how to write a killer cover letter. So thanks to all of you who've requested that I make this video. So today I'm going to cover 5 common mistakes that you should avoid when writing your cover letter in order to get your resume read and ultimately land those interviews. So let's get started. Lots of people think that the cover letter is about them and selling themselves into a role. Wrong. A well-crafted cover letter is actually all about the employer and your connection to that employer. An employer actually wants to know 3 things to do with your motivation for applying for a job. How the job motivates you, why they're an attractive employer, and what you bring to them. If you make the mistake of writing a cover letter all about you and how you fit to the job or how you feel that you fit to a job, you're going to miss that crucially important step of explaining the motivation behind why you're applying. And this is a really important thing to get across early on in the letter, usually within the first paragraph. You want to hook in the reader and show them that you're motivated to do this job, so that even when the job gets really tough, as most jobs do at times, you'll be motivated to work through that and really plough on and stick with them and push the company forward. A really good way of showing motivation is to provide a personal connection between yourself and the company. And you can do this in a number of ways. You could show shared passion or interest in something. Perhaps you've been a consumer and really enjoyed using a particular product, service or brand. Or perhaps you've got a mutual connection, or maybe you've even had the opportunity to collaborate with them in their research or with a competitor, something that directly links you to them. And for me personally, that's usually a link with my passion and interest for biomedical research. So I'm going to share with you an opener that I've used before for a job as a medical writer, which is the profession that I work in. So as an opening hook, I've written, as a lifelong devotee to the cause of biomedical research as a force for improving and extending lives, I'm confident that breakthrough treatments will continue to make the world a healthier place in the future. I've always had a natural aptitude for taking complex scientific information and converting it into clear messaging for a variety of audiences. I enjoy using this talent to help patients, and therefore when I saw that X company were hiring for a medical writer, I knew that I had found people who share a similar passion. So I hope you can see that by writing an opener like this, it really provides the motivation behind why you're applying for that particular job. So the next paragraph, after you've provided your compelling motivation story, is to explain to the employer why you should be considered in the context of this job and to effectively connect yourself to the job in question. In order to do this, you need to understand the employer's needs for the role. And actually, if you don't know the answer to that, you probably should be questioning why you're applying in the first place, as your resume ought to be tailored to each specific role with this information. But you find this information in 2 main ways. The first is to decode the job ad. Sit down with the job ad and pick out exactly what the employer is looking for and write that down. The job ad really represents the employer's wish list from a candidate, but try and think about what are the most important parts of the role that you would have to fulfill, and then start thinking about your own evidence of how you can fulfill that role. But the second way to gather more information is to do some employer research. So start trying to understand more about the company culture and their standing in the market. Is it, for example, a very creative environment that you would be going to work in? Would they be looking for people who are innovative and have a creative edge and maybe can communicate a vision. And is this company a market leader? Would they be looking for employees that can help them stay ahead in the marketplace? Or are they really struggling? In which case they might be looking for people who can implement changes and increase efficiency. So start to think about all these different aspects when you're trying to fulfill what an employer might be looking for from a particular candidate. And then try to pick out 3 to 4 really strong points that match your expertise to their requirements for that particular role. And this brings me nicely on to mistake number 3. If the only function of your resume is to get you a job interview, then likewise the only function of your cover letter is to get the prospective employer to read your resume. And so to do this, you tantalise their interest with those 3 to 4 really strong points. You don't need to rehash the resume or go on and on about information that's contained in there. In fact, don't repeat any of the phrases within the resume itself, because you're losing precious space within your cover letter that could be better used. By keeping your cover letter brief, you're demonstrating that you're respecting people's time. People are busy, especially people hiring and recruiters. So make sure it's brief and to the point, and you're picking out the key points that grabs their interest for them to open up your resume and read more. So rather than providing paragraph on paragraph of ineffective information, what you should really do is just be bullet pointing out those 3 to 4 key points. And you can do that something like this, writing something like, I believe my experience can make a significant contribution to your organisation because of X, Y and Z points. For each of those key points, you should be thinking about backing it up with tangible data, evidence that you can actually do the things you're saying you can do. And better still, if you can also include numbers into that. Say you're reading a job ad and one of the key functions of the role is to onboard junior members in the team. You may be able to use previous experience of training students to help you fulfill that evidence. For example, you could say something along the lines of, I have trained, coached and mentored more than 10 junior team members through to successful completion of their short-term projects. So by highlighting the key points and using keywords throughout your cover letter, you're really providing a little bit of a teaser, kind of trying to interest them into opening your resume and reading more about you. About the tone of the language you're using when you're writing your cover letters. I think too many people who are making a career transition, such as those out of academia into industry, try to apologise for their lack of direct experience. Saying things like, although I don't have prior MSL experience, I think I would do well in the job because da-da-da-da. Instead of wasting space by reiterating your lack of experience, which somebody would be able to see straight away from reading your resume, instead it's probably better to try and mitigate your lack of direct experience with your transferable skills instead inside the cover letter and provide analogous experience. So instead you could write something like, I have experience building productive relationships with key opinion leaders within our research team. And try to avoid the use of too many passive words. Things like, I think, perhaps, maybe, possibly. And instead choose assertive ones like, I believe, or I will, I know, and I have. But be aware of going too far the other way as well. You don't want to be misconstrued as coming across as arrogant. Avoid writing sentences like, my unique blend of skills will mean I am the top candidate for this position. Or, I will be waiting for your calls shortly. That's perhaps a little bit too strong, and it's up to the person reading whether they're going to get back to you or consider you as a top candidate or not. So there's no need to be pushy, but just try to keep the tone assertive. And then lastly, there's a few cover letter rules that I think you should try to stick to. So the first rule of cover letters is always write a cover letter. And the second rule of cover letters is always write a cover letter. And the reason I say this is that lots of people say, well, they didn't ask me for a cover letter, or I'm not sure if I need to provide one, I'm just emailing through my resume. You should always provide a cover letter, because you need that, as I said at the beginning, you need that introduction as to your motivation, your reasons why you apply. that won't come across in a resume. Your resume highlights the evidence that you're providing to show you can do the job, but it doesn't give that background story as to why you're applying, why you're highly motivated for it. So always use your cover letter to get that information across. So more often than not now, your cover letter will actually form the bulk email text when you're applying for a job. So your resume will be attached and the cover letter itself will be used as the email text. Put the job title and the reference number in the subject heading and attach your resume where the file name should contain your name within it, and then use the bulk of the email with your cover letter copy. Then write it in first person. So unlike your resume, the cover letter is actually your own narrative. It's your own story and information behind the reason that you're applying, and therefore it should come from you. Now, in terms of it is a formal document, so try to avoid using generic text speak or informal language, but it also needs to sound like it's coming from you and it's an authentic piece of writing, a bit of formal legal text written by a barrister. Next, always try and address it to a person. Try to find that key name of the person who's hiring. Sometimes you'll get lucky and it'll be in the job ad. Sometimes you might be able to identify it through contacts, or through searching through LinkedIn. It might be quite obvious who the hiring manager is. But in really large companies, this can sometimes be quite tricky. So you could go ahead and ring the HR department, ask who to address the cover letter to. But if in doubt, you could always use the recruiter's name as well, if there is a recruiter, if you're unable to find out who that hiring manager is. The key is you want that personalised name at the top of your letter. It shows that you've done a bit of research, you've found out who to address it to directly. And it means at the bottom of your cover letter, you can use the words "yours sincerely" to sign off. Don't forget to proofread your cover letter several times and do it as diligently as you would do with your resume. It's an equally as important part of your application as the resume itself, and therefore you should be investing the time to get it to top quality like your resume. And finally, the last paragraph of your cover letter should really be a call to action. You should be mentioning that your resume is attached, trying to prompt people to open it, and provide an easy way for them to contact you. Okay, so let's just briefly summarise what I've mentioned. There are 5 common mistakes that you should avoid when preparing your cover letters. The first is writing a cover letter that's all about you. In fact, an effective cover letter is actually all about the employer, why they're an attractive employer, how their job motivates you, and what you bring to them. These are the things you should be highlighting throughout your cover letter. The second mistake is failing to connect yourself effectively to the job in question. You should be aiming for 3 to 4 key points that match your experience to the role that you're applying for. The third mistake is trying to use the cover letter to sell yourself into the role. Cover letters that are too long or just rehash huge sections of the resume run the danger of overwhelming a busy recruiter. Instead, by tantalising the reader with 3 to 4 key points for your candidacy, you encourage them to want to open your resume and discover more. The fourth mistake is using the wrong tone, under or over assertive language. Don't make apologies for your previous work history. In my opinion, you shouldn't be apologising for the time you spent in higher education or working in the public sector as a researcher. Your experience is valid and highly valuable, and you should be confident in the fact that you bring a lot to the workplace. But in the same vein as being under assertive, don't go the other way in your language and become over assertive, because it's worse still to come across as cocky or arrogant in your applications. And finally, don't make the mistake of failing to follow standard cover letter etiquette. Firstly, always write a cover letter, even if it's not requested in the job ad. Secondly, use the cover letter copy as the email content where you attach your resume to, unless you're specifically asked to provide a paper copy. Third, write it in the first person and address it to a specific person. Always proofread it and end your cover letter with a call to action. And that's it. I hope by highlighting these 5 common mistakes, it helps you craft a cover letter that gets your resume read by employers. I'd love to hear about any success stories you have with these tips in your applications. And as always, if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments section below. I'll be happy to answer them. And in the meantime, take care and good luck with those applications. If you've enjoyed this content and you want to learn more about some of the things you can do to help you secure a job after your current academic position while still positively affecting your research work, then head over to my site. I've got a free download that can help you with this and offers some great suggestions for you to prepare for a job in industry after your current academic position.